Maybe they can't see it.
What? It's not a party.
Not yet.
I can put it
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to begin this meeting of the Big Plains Water and Sewer Special Service District. We all rise, we'll pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, starting with my left.
Ross Gregerson present.
Jerry Jorgensen present.
Harold Merritt present.
Marty Lisby present.
Mr. Bass present.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have a declaration or a conflict of interest that they think we'll get into tonight? If not, we'll move on with staff reports. Dale Harris, Superintendent, would you?
The biggest thing I got to report is I did the rural water last week and did the program, cross-connection program administrator course, passed with an 88%, so I'm officially certified for that. Pretty intense training for the 3 days. Got a lot of good information. One of them being is that I was going to do our own testing and try to do all of this in-house, which the state has advised it's really not the best thing to do for legality reasons. That way I'm just coming in doing a hazard assessment, letting the citizens know what they've got to do. They gave us a whole bunch of templates there that will have a list of the certified backflow prevention assembly testers that are in our area. The citizens can pick from those 6. And then with my recommendation, they will put in the backflow prevention assembly or device that I've recommended to go in. They will have 30 days to put that in from the time that I do their hazard inspection. And then of course, that technician will come to me, the SSD will get a copy of that, the customer will get a report, and of course the technician will get a report too. I see the biggest thing really in Apple Valley is going to be horse trough, hoses left in troughs, which is just a simple the 2-inch gap, but depending on what they're running into, if it's of course strapped to a piece of PVC, and we've got to do our measurements for the gap. But I see a lot of hoses left in watering troughs all over, which is definitely causing a cross connection on people's property, because our dual check at the road is a containment for us for the public system. The other side is the customers, and of course we're worried about that also. The amendments that was made to the Clean Water Act for the state of Utah in 1996, of course, is we're responsible for the furthest running tap in a home. So I will go into everybody's, not necessarily their home, and it just depends on what they've got going on. The biggest concern I would have in people's home is just the gap over a drain of where they're draining from a hot water heater or whatever, to make sure that we don't get a back siphonage that happens inside their property. Sprinkler systems, if people don't already have them, are gonna have a double check. That's what's gonna cover a sprinkler system and whatnot. So there is gonna be some costs to the customers because they got to pay for their installation. They've got to pay for their assembly or their device, and they've got to pay for the technician to come out and test that once a year. And then of course, if the device or assembly breaks, it has to be replaced with the manufacturer's parts by a certified person. And there's only a few of these devices that are allowed in a public water system. It's not like you go down to Home Depot and get parts for these. It's a pretty strict program. The other thing is that when we put in this water system, we need to do some notification because of having that dual check at our setter. We've essentially created a closed system for the customer. So if people don't have expansion tanks on those hot water heaters, we could end up having some problems with those. So I will be getting with Ben. I've got a template for that's got all the required language from the state. See what's the best way to go. Harold's got some ideas too, but we have to do those in mailers. They'll have to go to residents so that they have been notified that that's happening. That'll happen in the next 2 weeks. That's about the gist of it. It's a big, huge program. Any of you guys want to come and talk to me on a side note, I can take you through the intricacies of how the program will work. Biggest thing is education. We've got requirements every year for educating our public of any changes with cross connection that's going on. I've got to give a presentation. We've got to do door hangers and just keep people educated about water quality and the cross connection control program. The state is adopting more or less the more stringent rules and regulations that the EPA has had for years, and this is one of them that this is a big crackdown. That's why I went and did this, is because I needed to have it by the end of the year, all systems except for 500 and under. They've got to have it by 2022, and then we've got to have these programs in place. Also, Ben found the policy. I haven't gone through it intricately, but I'll go through that and make sure that we've got required language in there that comes from the state. Got a template for that, and of course with your guys' approval. They're pretty straightforward templates. We just plug in our names, and this has all been generated by the EPA and by the state of Utah, these templates. We can put in, we could insert our little, whatever we've want to do for fines. Like one of the things that if someone doesn't let me onto their property and denies me coming on and doing a hazard assessment, they're instantly deemed a high hazard, and my suggestion would be in our policy is they're locked out, and that's the state's suggestion too, because we don't know what they're doing on that piece of property anymore, just like that. But yeah, that's the biggest thing that's going on. Water usage is starting to pick up a little bit. Started up the 59 well today. It took me a couple of tries. It was pretty red, but it ended up coming pretty clear. Had Washington County hook up to a hydrant over in Cedar Point yesterday without notifying me, but I got that taken care of, which stirred up the water in Cedar Point for a little bit and had a couple of complaints, but it's settled back down now. I think that's it. Am I missing anything, Harold?
Yeah. So could we do some of this notification like in our mail out with our billing or something that they get every month?
Yep.
Rather than?
Yep. Yeah, it's it's an 8x11. It's got a lot of language on it, so we just need to fold it down for it to be in an envelope. But it has to go in the mail and has to be delivered and addressed to every customer the SSD has.
Yeah, might suggest you hit the high points and go over with Ben, because he's going to be the one that gets most of the calls.
Yeah, well, I will be the contact for all of that. It's part of my administrator. I'm the guy that's now certified to answer those questions and the only one that can deal with that program as far as education. I have to be the face of that and the information officer, so to speak, for that. With, Ben's going to feel like you say a lot of those calls, but those will be things that I'll have to address myself. Customers' concerns or questions they have.
We can hand out your home number on that. So
That's I carry my home number with me. I have my home number with me all the time. Yeah, it's hopefully it's going to be as smooth as it can be. Of course I will educate people before I go onto their property, and they'll be educated while I'm on the property. So they'll know what is going on and the importance of it, and this is for their protection. We're contained at for our system in particular, but of course we're here to serve our customers, and we want to make sure that they're safe on their property also.
let's give me a copy of it too. We'll put it on our website.
Say that again, please.
So give me a copy of it, and I'll get it on the website as
Yeah,
well.
that's like I said, there's a big program. We need to have a spot on there on the website so people can come for that cross connection control for any questions. We'll kind of have a question and answer, common questions. This is the answer to the common questions, so people have got kind of an education besides what we're going to be able to give them at their home or in a formal presentation. And then, of course, I will load them with any information that they need if they call me and want me to come by. But I'll be in, personal contact with anybody who's hooked to our system within the next year.
Okay, appreciate it. Anybody on board has any questions?
Oh, and the fence got done around well 59. Looks awesome. Looks
Yeah,
great.
that's great.
It's like a small penitentiary. Nobody should be getting in or out.
Yeah. We could have a volunteer put him in there and see if he's there for a day and see if he's working.
See if he can get out. Once again, Tony Shapley has donated a bunch of cinders there, and we're going to do some weed barrier that goes up underneath the fence, and it'll look really sharp when it's completely done inside the fence.
Yeah, great. Okay, appreciate it, Dale. Anything we can do to help, we'd be happy to, because it's gonna be a real time consuming operation.
Yeah. Well, once we get through it, it'll go smooth after that, once it's set up.
Okay, we'll go on to number 3, connection fee. We started out having a fixed fee for a water connection, then decided that it would probably be a good idea to have the contractor involved in the situation, be responsible for the excavation and replacement of road base or blacktop or whatever it is, to get it back the way it was when they started, rather than having us involved in it. And so through that process, Ben has come up with some language, and I've asked him to share that with us, and we can discuss it and see what his concerns are.
Yeah, so this is just kind of the proposed language. This is the very back, the last document in the packet. I think it, like Harold said, would be just best if I just read it aloud as it's proposed, and then the board can make any changes as they deem fit. So it says 1.1.2 will read, upon approval of the new water connection and payment of required fees, the applicant shall engage at their own expense a licensed and insured contractor approved by the water master for the excavation of the water main. The contractor shall schedule the excavation at a time when the water master is available to supervise the excavation. Upon excavation of the water main, the water master shall then install the service line and required water meter. After the installation of the water meter, the contractor shall then replace excavated materials and repair the impacted area to the condition prior to excavation. This includes new road base or asphalt as required by Apple Valley Town standards. So, and then the second section is related to Appendix A1, where the actual dollar amount is set for a connection fee. And this is the spreadsheet. The build-up for that is included in the spreadsheet that I just recently printed off and provided to you. This is some values that Dale and I worked together on, including all the equipment required for a water meter, the mileage associated with it, and labor hours. So.
Couple of thoughts I have, and then we can go around. In the language, the final language, to be more correct, instead of water master, it should be superintendent, to replace water master. Also, we need language in there that lets them know that I just wrote, the superintendent will charge for time spent relating to the project. So the superintendent will be reimbursed for any time he spends with the contractor, be laying it out, filling it up, digging it out, the actual connection, and so on. But however you'd like to phrase that, but I think just short and sweet, that the superintendent be reimbursed for any time relating to the project. Then we get back down to the $1,600, and we're we've got to loosen that up, in my view, a little bit. Maybe with just language that's an approximate cost or something, we're going to be tied back into a solid figure like we were before. Somebody's going to say, well, it says $1,600 and we had to replace a bunch of blacktop, and the contractor's going to say, well, it cost me $2,000 to do this. Who's going to make up the difference? And the superintendent spent. So that's kind of where I'm at. Anybody got some thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like what you're saying, and I think that couldn't we add something in there that just says the connection cost, or based on actual cost, hours, materials, things like that, and this is an estimate of what those might be. And the other is when we have a laborer, Is this for his dog or sit in the car? Do you get him out and he helps or,
Yeah.
but I'm just kidding, but
Takes
the other, we have 6 hours of backhoe time, yet we're not digging anything because we're having the contractor responsible for that. And it seemed like we could, actually, probably most of the cases, you wouldn't even have either of those items. And we're estimating Dale's time to be maybe at 6 hours, which is probably more than fair and accurate, but do you have someone that ever helps you as far as labor goes? If they're exposing it or?
Harold's generally the guy that does any shuttling, or if I'm in something deep and need a safety watch or whatever.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I'm just asking, because I didn't know that. But
And then
yeah,
just a
if
little,
you have someone in,
just a
that's
little
what makes
history,
sense.
Marty. I don't know, back in the Moser days, we passed a thing that any of the board members that came out and helped me in the field was $15 an hour, so that's where we came up
Okay,
with the.
all right, well, it's probably fair then. But on the backhoe, they're supplying that, I don't know. I mean, it's just, obviously, we could put it down there if the backhoe's being used, then it would be that, but.
Well, if we're adopting this, in theory anyways, the backhoe, our backhoe shouldn't be used, if these guys are doing it. Another thing I think that should be added in there, I think that, because we talked about before about getting an encroachment permit from you folks, do we want to mention that in there, that basically, or are we gonna kind of put that in, that required fees, do we want to put that language in there that, so that you guys are aware of what's going on, so you know what your road looks like before water connections happen?
It's a good idea, both those are not. So we put in there that the encroachment permit would be required, and that these are estimated fees.
Encroachment permit were applicable, because some of these I don't do in right-of-ways for you guys, so maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, put down the $1,600 for estimated fees.
Just try replacing
And then
that
you could
with time and materials.
Excuse me?
Just try replacing that with time and materials, and then that way you're covered with any and all costs.
That's not a bad idea. If you had that verbiage there, time and materials.
Yeah.
So historically, we have billed in advance. So the person who's applying for the connection will pay the $2,500 ahead of time. Dale goes out and it's done. So in this case, we'd be billing after the project is complete. We'd provide an itemized list. Is that kind of what the board
Well,
feels like?
Yeah, we have an itemized list, and it would be Dale's time. The contractor would be the one that'd have to deal with the customer as far as the asphalt back and the road base, and so that'd be his problem. We're gonna have a pretty minor part in this.
Could we call it a deposit, so we're still charging up front, we're getting upfront money, and then we're refunding off the deposit based on actual fees that came out. And you could include the backhoe as estimated, but the chances are all that goes back because we didn't use one. Would it be okay to call it a deposit? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then maybe based on time and materials, but you're at $37 an hour?
Yeah.
That's
Oh, that's
a
with it,
little
yeah.
low for the.
That's all benefits
That's everything.
and taxes, everything included. That's the Dale's.
Payroll, all
No,
that.
I mean, we're gonna charge the customer just his cost, is that?
So yeah, this may be a good time to read the state code and the reason that we're looking at this again. So in section 17 of the state code reads, a district may not impose or collect a hookup fee that exceeds the reasonable cost of installing and inspecting the pipeline meter to connect to the district water.
So shouldn't we say, use that verbiage right there, including all reasonable costs? Shouldn't we just what do you think of that?
Yeah, tweak it a little bit, yeah.
And then let's go back to the payment thing. I see where Ben is going on this, and I get a little bit nervous because for the district, the only thing that we can assure that we're gonna get paid for those types of things is that you don't get any water until you've actually made that payment. So I'm a little nervous about doing a deposit, someone getting water, and then us getting, which history shows that that's happened to us, we're left hung out to dry while someone's got water. We can go through the locking them out and doing all of that, but do we want to go through that hoopla? Or do we want to give a little bit more of a set price to make sure that we are covered above a deposit. I'm a little nervous about that.
What I meant by deposit was what, everything that they pay us, which would be $1,600, which covers everything,
That's the
would be
deposit, okay.
called a deposit, and then we're just refunding them what we didn't spend.
I'm good with, yeah, okay. I
And
just
then,
wanted to make
and
sure
if
we're
they
not
owe
gonna
$300 or
be left
$400,
out.
we go after them for that, but, you know, it was just, I was just saying, call that $1,600 deposit.
I agree, okay. I understand.
But we wanted the money up front, because if they're not gonna, we don't wanna put it in and we're chasing them 2 months later, so.
Yep. I understand.
And you don't have to have that 1,600, you could say $2,500 deposit for hookup fees, and then anything that's not, that we finish off, that we don't use, will be refunded back to you.
Good point.
I'd rather do over than under,
I'm with you.
you know, and
That's
then have to go
also-
back after them and say, hey, well, you need to pay another $400, but.
Ben, so if it's a reasonable cost, right, and they hire a contractor, they're not gonna get a contractor for $37 an hour.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I don't know, I have a little trouble wanting you working for cost, you know, I mean, I think that should be a little more, I mean, a fee.
That's an interpretation of state code, and I have very limited exposure with this, but it seems like you're walking on, you just want to be careful about turning a profit, a local entity turning a profit on labor, right?
Yeah, but if you have a $2,500 deposit, and then once it's all done, let's say it's only $1,800, you give them back a refund, you're doing exactly what the state requires.
Well, he's talking about though the dollar amount.
Yeah, that's what I said, but let's,
But, you know, cause the dollar amount, I agree with Ben, based
yeah,
on verbiage, it
that's
sounds
for
like.
us to look at, it's not for anybody else, but I don't see, like he said, you're not gonna get a contractor out there for $37 an hour, more like $137 an hour.
Well, but that's what Ben's trying to say though, is that his interpretation says that we can't charge $137 an hour.
That's right.
We have to charge what we actually have, and then, so if someone comes back and challenges us and grammar requests and all that stuff that we're liable for, or, you know, recourse that people have, you know, and we say that Dale put 2.5 hours in, why are you charging me, you know, for 6? So we just wanna, be above board on this to where we're not getting in trouble and having a class action lawsuit against us, so.
and I think if we went to $2,400, we'd be way over the top because, I mean, I think it's a good number. I don't have a problem with that. I think we'd certainly be protected because
Yeah.
the big numbers are gonna be with the contractor.
I like that we're, the over deposit, just to make sure that we're covered, because
Yeah.
what I'm gonna have is I'm gonna locate that line, and I've said this to Harold, as soon as they've gotten away from my main line and I know that they've located it, I'll go off and do something else until I get a phone call that says they have a trench ready for me. Then I will come back to that trench, saddle up, soon as they have layered my pipe and they've come up over that foot and they've bedded my pipe, it's now actually your guys' inspection because it's your guys' road is the way that I'm looking at it. So in theory, as soon as my can is done, as soon as my line is protected, that final inspection is what that road looks like when you guys, because the SSD's equipment, we're all hooked up and we've got our minimum and we're good to go. So I mean, I'm not gonna have, so what I'm getting at, Ross, is that if we have that 6 hours in there, I think that code word, that word there, reasonable, I think is a reasonable amount, because things change. They hit utilities, you know, if they hit my water line and all of a sudden so I think that 6 hours would cover me when, like Marty pointed out, I might only be 2.5 hours. But this will, you know, utilities get hit, they hit something else, who knows, it's a rainy
But
day.
they're not ready, you go there and they're not ready.
Exactly, and
Just know that based on the way it's worded though, if, you know, they're pretty astute that he's only there maybe 15 minutes is what they're gonna feed back to me. And if we've charged them 6 hours.
But if your superintendent has documented what went on that day, I have a journal that covers the hours that I've put in.
That's what I was gonna suggest in that.
Yep.
So that way we have in the
I've kept
file.
a daily journal since I was 15 years old.
Awesome, so that way we could always though have that in the file, we know that this is what we're actually gonna charge. We're not charging everybody 6 hours is my point.
Right.
We're charging based on what you say that you.
Well,
Exactly,
We
and that's
should-
where that 2,500, and then we can be able, like Lenny said, we can back all of that out, and then
Right.
everybody's
And do a
good
refund,
to
yeah.
go.
And we shouldn't have any backhoe charges, but they're doing it. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this was the buildup was an older revision of it.
Okay.
Have you got all that, Ben?
I think I do.
It's all on tape, you know?
Can you read that?
Go back
Can you read that
tomorrow.
All right, any more comments on this?
I think it's a wonderful plan and idea, and I think it makes this run a little bit smoother, so, good job.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead with this and then have it in written form next time to put in policy, to adopt.
Okay, before you go to number 4, can I ask you a question? Go back to number 2, and the training that's coming up in April is not optional,
Oh,
it's mandatory
I
for all the people on the water board.
Yeah, I missed that accidentally. That's going to be on the 9th of April, and I talked to the grand bidder about it. He said that the training most likely would be in the evening, late afternoon or evening.
Okay.
And this is at the water board, right?
Yeah, it's at the
Water
Conservancy.
Conservancy
Okay,
building on
alright.
Red Hill, yeah.
All right.
And he said he would let us know the details as they got closer, but to circle the 9th and try to keep it open.
Yeah,
And you're right, it's not
it's not optional, it's mandatory.
yeah,
All right.
you have to have a note from somebody if you're not there. Okay, thanks, Denny.
Mhm.
We'll go to item 4, USDA RD water project update. That's the water project at Canaan, the redoing of the collection apparatus for the springs. And to my knowledge, and talking to the people at the Dixie convention last week, that application is in Washington DC and is in the final approval phase. And it should be, within a couple of weeks, we should be able to go forward. Yeah, keep your fingers crossed. Go forward with letting bids. So it has completed the review of all the people in Salt Lake. Again, that was my understanding, and it's on the road to the final approval for the money people, and then it'll come down here.
And that covers what?
That will cover Dale might know.
Where we walk up the hill,
That'll cover the spring to the right. That'll cover that spring box and the main line all the way down to the tanks. That's where our program's still at the last time that I knew.
Right.
But we can't use that on the other spring box because that did not get affected by the earthquake. That's the last time I talked to Rod, is we weren't gonna be able. So while we're on that subject, folks, we still have to meet that protection zone around that other box, or that will be on our IPS report, and the points have gone up massively for springs. There's 75 points of whack. So we still have that cost for that other spring. That doesn't take that spring out of the woods. We need to have a liner down there. We need to have clay put down. We're out of compliance on the spring that's actually running.
There are some gray areas, well, several, but one.
We have potable water. We're being filmed. Everything's good that way, but as far as we got root intrusion, so you're not supposed to have that in your springs.
Along those lines, if we could keep the road open, I don't know if they'll allow us to keep the road open indefinitely, but if we could keep it open long enough to get up there with some equipment to haul some clay up to clean that area out, and then I'm sure through the wilderness area they probably want that road closed to some degree.
Yeah.
And so we've got to do everything while it's open. And that would require, or it'd be helpful to have some volunteer help on that a little bit. There's a lot of
The
handwork
biggest thing
up
will be
there.
a track hoe. It's the piece of equipment, because you can't get a backhoe up there. Anybody who's hiked that knows that a backhoe don't go up that.
So when that starts, we'll have to get involved with that. But be that as it may, the collection area, the refurbishing of the well that was hit by the earthquake, there will be a new line, 8-inch.
Yes.
Coming down from the springs, all the way down to the tank.
With new PRVs and
Yeah,
stuff like that in there also.
At the tank
Training
now,
points.
we have about, put on holding about 140 PSI. So we need to regulate all that pressure
Yeah,
all the
we're
way down.
120, 130 is where we're at now.
So we need to drop that back down and make sure, well, we do now, but with new equipment.
Yeah.
Because if that ever got loose, we'd have too much pressure across the road, and so all of those things will be replaced as part of this. So the spring will be running through a new pipe, twice the size that's running now.
Both springs will be, yep.
And so, that's about it. New collection, new pipe.
And the protection zone, of course, around the development and everything of the spring that got destroyed. Yep.
So it'll be the same thing, only better, Denny, is the plan.
Well, Dale, if we have equipment up there doing the one spring, maybe we could work something to.
That's what I'm kind
Up
of
there,
alluding
right?
to. If we just probably have to see at that time what our cost would be, what those guys would actually do for us. I mean, it's really not that much of pipe to get to the Y. Piece of equipment up there. I mean, you gotta put liner down and stuff. I only see like there's a couple of days if you've got a track hoe up in there just to be able to take care of everything. And like Harold said, of course I'd be up there. All we need is an operator. We can supply the labor and put out the cover that needs to go out and put pipe together, do all of that. That guy just needs to sit in his equipment and I'll put all the pipe together. So we just have to see at that time if that would be the smart thing to do, because I think going up in the wilderness, you only kind of get one shot with those guys. They're going to want us to remediate when we come out of there and all of that. So we kind of only want to make that dent once.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do some repair on that trail going up there to start with before we even get up there. Cause when we walked it, there was a lot of open areas that
Yeah.
was exposed, so we're gonna have to fill those in first so we can even get up the hill, so.
Yeah.
You have to be able to walk a track hoe up there somehow.
Yeah.
Matt Jessup got up there. He's a gifted man when he got that thing up in there. He got a piece of equipment, big piece of equipment around some corners that he technically should have been in the wash when he went around, but yeah.
Okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. It's in the pipeline, so they told me not to worry about it. Easy for them to say, they left town. But we'll hope that things come around within the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, so we can go to bid on it. Any more questions on the springs?
Except for what the extra work we have to do that you talked about, could you put together a rough cost of what it's gonna cost us to do it? It's gonna be our expense.
Are you talking about the other spring box?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
And we should go ahead and just plan ahead, like you were saying,
Right,
to
yeah.
do it that way, and let's get the numbers together, we can get it.
Yeah, I think we're only gonna get one shot with the wilderness guys.
Right.
And we don't wanna have to go back up in there and,
Especially when you already have the equipment there.
I mean, you didn't like that hike?
I love that hike, actually. That's a not everyday hike. Denny says, how many times you come up this thing? I was like, that's only once a week. That's a Monday or Tuesday, go up and check the spring box and make sure everything, cause you can't get the four-wheeler up that. Since we dug that up, that thing just spins. Last time I took the four-wheeler up there, Matt was up there and we had to chain it and pick it up out of the hole that I dug with the four-wheeler and set it up out so I could drive it back out of there.
That's pretty rough territory.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but yeah.
It's a good walk if anybody likes to take it. Anybody on the board?
I'll get a picture.
I've already done it.
Okay, anything else on that? That's just kind of a wait and see deal. Number 5, the truck had some issues and we thought it was a blown head gasket. Had some tests done on it and found out that it was not a head gasket, but it was a EGR exhaust gas leak, which is a heat exchanger that sits underneath the turbo on the engine. And so instead of going back to the drawing board on that truck and trying to get another truck and whatever, with all the new stuff we got on it already, for about $500 we can get a new heat exchanger underneath the turbo. Most of that is labor. Everything has to come out. So to open it up for for discussion, but, the mechanic I talked to said that heat exchanger could be taken out and omitted, and that just capped. If you're not using it for heavy duty pulling, the turbo doesn't get that hot. He said, but, if you could put a new heat exchanger in, his suggestion was just to pull everything out, cap it, and get rid of that leak that we had, because it's being held by stop leak, which is.
Working like a champ, that's for sure.
Yeah, it works until it doesn't, kind of deal.
Yeah, that plugs up the radiator or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Eventually we'll get you.
Yeah.
So anyway, my suggestion is we go ahead and change that heat exchanger, and he said we're good for another 100,000 on that truck.
I prefer that as well, to
Yeah.
exchange it as opposed to capping it, because, you know, we're out here in this heat, and that turbocharger could heat up more than, I don't know.
When you're gonna need it.
I'd rather have that cooling there for the turbo.
I race it every Wednesday, so I need that turbo.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead then with the final repairs on the truck and call it good. If everybody is good with that. Well, just for formality, I motion that we repair the truck, the EGR gas coolant device in the
What was the
truck.
total cost, $2,600?
Well, that's the brakes and all of the other
Oh,
stuff
okay,
that
yeah,
happened. This
total.
is about $500.
Oh, okay.
So I make a motion that we do that. Need a second?
I'll second.
Better
Oh.
buy a new truck.
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll go ahead and finish up the truck repairs as soon as we can.
Just let me
so,
know when you need Lambert to, when you want me to drop it off.
Well, I'll talk to him, or you can talk to him. Why don't you talk to him and
Okay.
make the arrangements, tell him to order what he needs.
Okay, I will.
He said the parts aren't really tough to come by, it's just, he'll need it over a weekend, so you're not out of it.
Okay.
Okay, one other comment, it's not on the agenda, but I'd like to bring it up. Been approached by folks about 2 or 3 things that, they want this, that, or the other changed, and I was just gonna, mention that, mostly for, Ben, that if it's a policy they don't like, or if it's something that needs to be changed, that requires board approval, they're ending up calling me and spending an hour on the phone, and I'm discussing things that I can't do anything about. So I just suggest that if any of us run into somebody that's got something that they want changed or to discuss that is in the policy area, that they just get on the agenda, and we'll deal with it as they'd like to, and then we can deal with it as a board, yea or nay, and be on our way rather than talk it to death.
Yeah, there have been a few issues lately that that I've approached you guys individually about, and it would probably be best if I just suggested to the individual to request a board meeting agenda item.
I don't have any problem talking with them, just so they understand that there's nothing I can do without the board approvals on a lot of things, so.
Well, like Carol said, if it's a policy, I mean, at the end of the day, it should be your guys' decision when it comes to if it's gotta be a modification or you know, whatever with that policy, but, you know.
It is what it is until we change it. If we start rounding the corners, we're gonna find ourselves in trouble, so. All right, consent calendar, January 2020, expense report. I went through those online.
Yeah, went through the consent calendar for January 2020 and expense budget, expense report, it's budget update and the year-to-date financial. And I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Aye.
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 Okay, we don't have any closed session issues, I don't think, that I'm aware of anyway. motion that we
Can I just make a comment, please?
Sure.
Rich Cop, 1193 East Big Canyon. Going back to the cross connection and the flyers to the homes, I mean, I'm pretty good with plumbing and everything, but maybe a little picture as to where they might need a device.
Oh, yeah, I'll
A
be-
simple picture that.
they will be shown exactly where that's gotta go. I will have to come and inspect it and make sure that it went in the same, the property.
So they'll understand beforehand what they need.
Yeah, I won't come in and just go, hey, I'm standing at your fence line and I think you need this and this, call
Yeah.
this guy. What I come in is I do a hazard assessment. So I will come in and I say, you need a pressure relief valve here, or you need a dual check here, or whatever that I determine that he's gotta have. Then that person will get that information sheet. Of course, there's been educational stuff that's come out before I've even come to these folks' property. They've gotten stuff that's come out. Here's how the program works, this is the importance of the program.
Mhm.
Then when I come on, I can say like, let's just say Joe Below's got a sprinkler system and it's just hooked right to his culinary line. That's the only thing that he's got. So I'll just say, you need to put in a double check right here.
Right.
You need to have it so far away from your culinary line. This is where you've got to have it. Here's the folks, you've got 6 people to choose from that'll come and install it.
Right.
That guy will call me
Mhm.
when he gets completely done, and then that actually turns into kind of the technician working for the customer. That's why the state suggests that we kind of stayed out of that part of it, so we didn't have a legal liability or taking up time for a staff that you don't actually have. Then I will be coming back in, and if that plumber hasn't done it right or whatever, hopefully that plumber is staying in contact with me if he's got any questions during it. But I come back, as soon as he's installed that, he has to by law notify me within 10 days that backflow preventer has been put in, is installed. Then I come in and give it a final inspection, and I say, yep, that meets everything. And then from that year out, he's got to come in, because it's an annual inspection that you have to have your backflow done. So they will be very well educated before a plumber even comes on their property. Yeah.
One other question, suppose I have a hose that's going to a trough for the cows.
You-
Would I have to have something on the hose before I hook it to the spigot?
I would expect you to have an air gap.
An air gap,
Yep.
meaning what?
But you are at least a bare minimum. It depends on, there's a calculation, but just for the sake of conversation, that hose is sitting 2 inches, a piece of baling wire over that trough, that it isn't sitting down in that trough. But then I would give you a suggestion for a hose bib breaker off of that hydrant. I would give
That's
you,
it, a
but I
hose
wouldn't
bib
make you do
breaker.
that, because your air gap is actually your ultimate backflow prevention,
Right,
is having
but
that air
I
gap.
got it.
So I would say you need to have that air gap, and then part of hazard assessment, if I was to drive by, because now I know where that trough is at, and if
Yeah.
I was to drive by and that you've got that in there, that's when I would say, it looks like you can't keep that out of the trough, so now I'm gonna expect you to put a double check in, because.
I got you, right.
Yep.
So a simple loop up and then in would be
Not
sufficient?
in,
'cause
you can't submerge it, so all you're doing is like, your trough is sitting down here,
Yes.
and let's say you've got, a fence or whatever right here.
Yes.
You're just taking your hose and giving it a dangle, here's your water down
Yeah.
here, you're just strapping your hose to the fence right there.
And
You need an
that's
actual
the air
air
gap
gap.
you're talking about.
That's
Right,
your air
right,
gap,
I
so
got
you
you.
can't do a back siphonage
Right.
and siphon
I
out
see
of
what
that.
you're saying. So that's the simple
You
protection
create a
right there.
negative, you guys fire up a shower and a tub, let's say, on
Yeah.
your property, and you've left that in that horse trough, you just suck water out
Yeah,
of
I
that,
see
and now
what
you
you're
guys
saying.
are
Okay.
drinking horse
Yep,
trough water.
right.
Some people ain't that, but.
No, I see what you're saying.
It's not.
All right. I think it would, like I said, a simple picture, I think would help the customers to know exactly.
They will know all of
what
that.
they're
Yep,
about.
they will have all of that.
Okay.
They will have explained.
Hey,
I think we're.
yeah, let's,
Sorry.
okay, is that it, Rich?
That's it.
Okay, did we adjourn?
We need a
I forgot
motion.
where we're
No.
at.
We're adjourning now.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'm a motion that we adjourn.
Second. Aye.
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 Okay.